So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where the Philippines form an empire. Now the Philippines are a fairly strong island nation over here in Southeast Asia. They're surrounded by some pretty strong countries as well, such as Indonesia and Australia. And to the north, of course, you cannot forget China, as well as both Koreas and Japan. But in this mapping video, the Philippines will be forming an empire of their own, which means they're going to be going on a territorial conquest. So if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. As always, the support is greatly appreciated. Make sure to check out the 200,000 subscriber merchandise that is only available for a limited time. After December 31st, it will all be going away, so I highly recommend you pick something up before it's gone. But other than that, make sure to check out the channel memberships for early access to every single video, as well as the Discord server. All three of those things are linked down in the description below. But let's go ahead and jump straight into this video. Alright, so the Philippines now have a monarchy in place, and the monarch of this country wants to expand the territory of the Philippine Islands. There is just one slight issue with doing so, and that's that the Philippines are secluded over here on their island chain, and they don't directly border any nation. So in order to form their empire, the Philippines is going to have to build one of the strongest navies in the world, and over the course of a few years, they'll do exactly that. So now that they have a very capable navy, they're going to have to use all of its might to invade a nation, and they're also going to have to get pretty lucky with this one as they take on the country of Brunei. The landing in Brunei is absolutely horrible. So many soldiers die. But at the end of the day, and despite hundreds of thousands of casualties, the Philippine Islands are successful in taking out their first country, and these guys will be annexed into the new Filipino empire. Now obviously Brunei isn't like super strong. I was kind of exaggerating that. In fact, I doubt Brunei would even try to fight back against the Philippines. But now the Philippines have an official landing ground somewhere other than their own islands, more specifically right next to Malaysia, which will be the country that they go after next. So once again, relying on their navy, as well as any troops that are already stationed in Brunei, the Philippines will begin a land invasion of the eastern part of Malaysia. Now, I'm actually interested down in the comments below. If you're from this region, tell me what are the main differences between East and West Malaysia. I know that this video is about the Philippines, but since these guys are getting invaded, let me know in the comments, what is the biggest difference between the two halves of Malaysia? I honestly have no idea. All I know is that they're separated. But back to the war scenario, the Philippines are going to have a very easy time invading into this part of Malaysia. I do believe that the more populated area is over here where their capital city is. Now, I could be completely wrong on that. That's just an educated guess. But anyway, back up here in the north, the Philippines will completely surround these Malaysian troops who are all going to be captured. While back down south, the main Filipino divisions will continue their advance into Malaysian territory until eventually this part of the country is split up into very many pieces, all of which are going to surrender. And from there, the Philippines is going to have full occupation over all of eastern Malaysia. So straight up, the Philippines are already stronger than Malaysia, but since this is an empire video, we also have to account for the fact that the Philippines are going to be slightly buffed in order to help them form this empire. If you haven't seen an empire video before, how I do these is usually the country isn't as strong as like the Philippines, for example. Like when we did Armenia 2 weeks ago, they definitely needed the buff because Armenia is not a very strong country. So the buff still applies, just not as much as Armenia because they don't need as much as Armenia. Anyway though, the Filipino and Malaysian governments will sit down probably like on this island. Well, actually, I don't know, because I don't know what's on this island. So let's actually put them over in Singapore. They're going to meet there and they're going to discuss the peace treaty of this war, in which the Philippines will actually fully annex all of eastern Malaysia. Now that is a lot of land to get early on in their empire, but when faced with the facts, Malaysia didn't really have any other option. The Filipino monarch was demanding all of eastern Malaysia, and of course they don't have a military that's strong enough to not only land over here, but take all of it back, meaning that no matter what, the Philippines were going to get this. So they take peace and they're no longer at war, but the Filipino empire is now looking something like this. So now comes a pretty hard decision, and that is, where do the Philippines invade next? You definitely don't want to go up north. You cannot attack China, and you probably shouldn't attack Taiwan either. Obviously, Japan and Korea are both out of the question. At this point, the Philippines may not be strong enough to take on all of Vietnam. You can't go after Malaysia because you have a peace treaty with them. Definitely do not attack Indonesia. But there is a few island nations out here, but they're too small for me to color in. So instead, the Philippines will be attacking the nation of Papua New Guinea. Now, this country is fairly far away from where the Philippines actually are, but remember, the Philippines have one of the strongest navies in the world at this point. They spent years building up their navy so they can go on these exact kind of long voyages. So the Filipino Navy will make a landing in the very northernmost areas of Papua New Guinea, and they're going to do something that is very weird. They're going to just slither around the coast, and eventually they'll get down here to the southernmost areas where they will immediately go down and capture the capital city of Papua New Guinea, which will not capitulate capitulate them, but it is going to heavily weaken them as the Filipino Navy lands in various Papua New Guinea islands, which I'm honestly not too sure if they're all Papua New Guinea islands. Like, I might have messed up somewhere, so I apologize if the borders aren't exactly correct. But oftentimes I don't find myself looking at maps of Oceania. But anyway, we have all of Papua New Guinea eventually surrendering over to the Filipino Empire, which means they have now taken out their third country, well, technically their second country. They didn't fully annex Malaysia, but we can go ahead and take a look at the peace treaty between Papua New Guinea and the Philippines. And in this treaty, we see that the Filipino Empire has annexed all of the northernmost areas of Papua New Guinea, as well as these various islands over here to the northeast of that country. So they now span all the way over here to the bottom right corner of the map, and they will now attack these Solomon Islands next. Now you might also notice that the island of Bougainville has been colored in blue, and as of right now, you know, this country is a part of Papua New Guinea, but once again, remember, the Filipinos have been building up their navy for years, meaning that this takes place probably in 2030, which also means that Bougainville would be an official independent country. So they'll attack both of these countries at the same time. That independence for Bougainville was very short-lived, very cool, but too bad. Get ready to learn Filipino, buddy. This peace treaty is going to be very simple. They'll just fully annex all of these islands over here, and now these Solomon Islands as well as Bougainville no longer exist, but the Filipino Empire now reaches even further to the east. Alright, the fun is over. Australia is going to step in, and they're going to tell the Philippines to stop, basically setting them a cease and desist. If you invade any more of the Oceanic islands over here near us, we will respond to you, and that is a war that the Philippines definitely don't want to fight, so they are now restricted from expanding anywhere over here, meaning they can't attack any of these countries like Fiji. So instead, they'll now shift their focus to the west, and they're going to eye up one of these countries over here in Southeast Asia. More specifically, they're eyeing up the nation of Cambodia. Now, invading this country would be very challenging if you didn't have a very good navy. So the Filipinos will land, and they'll just absolutely slam troops into Cambodia. This is a relatively weak nation, so the Philippines already have the advantage, but their military will very easily take the capital city of this country, and from there, they'll start to expand out into the more central areas, but they won't go too far because there really isn't a reason to, as the Cambodian government has just officially surrendered. No Vietnam, you're not joining the war, but the rest of these guys are surrendering. So another country has hit the chopping block, and the Philippines are now expanding their reach very far, all the way from the Solomon Islands technically over into Cambodia. We'll see what the peace treaty looks like here in a second, but this is probably one of the most interesting empire videos I've done so far because, like, the Philippines themselves, they haven't gotten any bigger because they can't. Once again, they don't border anybody, but the territorial claims they have from their island chain are very, very unique. You know, you have Western Malaysia, Northern Papua New Guinea, all these islands over here, and your newest addition will be a part of Cambodia. So let's go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty. And in it, we see that the Philippines will actually fully annex all of southern Cambodia, but they will leave the rest to form a puppet government. Honestly, I don't really know if that's too practical considering the fact that half of Cambodia is gone and the remaining areas are not super populated, not super strong. So in all reality, this puppet state probably couldn't function or exist, but for the sake of this fictional video, they will. Here's an updated look at our Filipino empire, but now there's another hard question to answer, and that is, where do they go next? You're still not strong enough to take on Indonesia, at least not without an ally. Still don't want to go after any of these guys up here in East Asia, and the Malaysian peace treaty is likely still ongoing. Also, this island was acquired by them in the peace treaty. I just kind of undid it too much and it didn't get colored in. Anyway, back to this though. Where do they go next? Well, the Philippines are going to be trying their luck, and they're going to be going to war with the nation of Vietnam. Now, this is the strongest country they have fought against so far. Vietnam is pretty similar in strength to the Philippines, at least I want to say that. Actually, I don't know if that's true, so fact check me on that one. But what is true is the fact that they are definitely the strongest military power that the Philippines have fought up against so far. Luckily though, they do have the jump on Vietnam since this was a surprise invasion. Filipino Navy will make multiple landings in the southernmost areas of this country, but the main invading force will emerge from Cambodia as they move across and occupy all of southern Vietnam in the incoming weeks of the war. And there really isn't too much Vietnamese resistance at first, but as the war progresses, that quickly changes, and the main Vietnamese army will reach down here to the south, and when they do, they immediately start to push back the red team invaders. And this is mostly due to the fact that the Philippines were doing a very sloppy invasion. They saw that the Vietnamese defenders weren't really down here, so they were just trying to take as much land as possible. They didn't really fortify their claims, they didn't really set up checkpoints and stuff like that. So when the main Vietnamese army finally came back down, it didn't end too well for the red team, as we just saw. Anyway though, the Vietnamese counteroffensive will eventually come to a halt whole as the Philippines do a better job at defending. Now, they were just all the way up here, but they've been pushed back a considerable amount. But after the stalemate occurs, they will draw up some new invasion plans, ones that are a lot more effective and ones that are going to make sure that they hold on to their occupied land. So when the time comes, the Philippines will start a counteroffensive out, and they'll utilize their puppet state to cut off a lot of Vietnamese forces in this area. From here, some boat drive-bys occur, and those boats will eliminate some of the army groups here. And by eliminate, I mean absolutely massacre. Anyway, this is all colored in pink now. A lot of dead bodies there. The UN is very concerned. The Filipino Empire is now just south of the capital city of Hanoi. I don't think I ever pronounced that right, so I apologize to my Vietnamese viewers. Anyway, though, at this point, Vietnam will surrender over to the Philippines on the basis that they are allowed to exist as their own sovereign and independent nation. The Philippines weren't really even interested in creating a puppet government out of Vietnam, so they'll agree to those terms, and they'll meet over here in Taiwan to discuss a peace treaty, one of which has the Philippines annexing all of the southernmost areas of Vietnam, so it's not exactly where the 1960/70 line was that divided North and South Vietnam, but it's pretty close. Not that that has any relevance to this war, but just a historical thing, I guess. Anyway, luckily enough, the peace treaty with Malaysia has just expired, which means they are next on the chopping block. And for the first time, Filipino troops will land in Western Malaysia. They'll sever Singapore from Malaysia. Not that that really matters because Singapore is its own country, but the southern area of Malaysia is gone, and they'll start to work their way up the coast of Malacca, and over here they'll work their way up the coast of the West Philippine Sea. Yes, this is officially the West Philippine Sea. Anyway, goodbye capital city of Malaysia. Hello full occupation. Oh, hello, full annexation. So the nation of Malaysia no longer exists. That is now just known as the Philippines. And very quickly, the Philippines have made their goals very clear. They want to control the entirety of the coast of this body of water right here. We all know it as the South China Sea in real life. But since this is the Philippines video, we get to officially rename it once again to the West Philippine Sea. And they've done a pretty good job at getting all of the land in this region so far. The only places they really still have to expand are over to Thailand. But that won't be happening because Thailand has just joined an alliance with the Filipino Empire. More likely than not, this was a result of fear rather than just friendly relations. But the Philippines will welcome themselves a pretty strong ally over here. But the Philippines' next goal is to go... Oh, that's not good. Indonesia has just declared war on the Philippines and their empire, which also brings Thailand into the war. At this point, Indonesia is a little bit stronger than the Filipino Empire, and on top of that, Papua New Guinea has joined this coalition. So, that's not good for these guys. Oh, yeah, that's definitely not good. Okay, so the Indonesians have a lot of success in this war at the very start of it. Almost all of the eastern Malaysia is taken, and on top of that, a naval landing is made over here in western Malaysia. Luckily enough, though, the Philippines have the power of me on their side, because in some cases the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but they're definitely not friendly, so that philosophy doesn't necessarily apply here. Anyway though, Australia will join this war for the goal of gaining land. I know Australia doesn't want land in real life. I mean, neither does the Philippines, but hey, you know, this is the perfect opportunity to go ahead and do that. So the Australians will begin to invade into Papua New Guinea first. That feels a little bit targeted, but hey, who am I to judge? Anyway, they'll now work together with the Filipino army to take out the entire island of New Guinea, and that definitely was not to the plan of Indonesia, and neither was this ginormous counteroffensive carried out by the Filipinos. They're now occupying actual Indonesian land, which is not going to set well with the actual population of Indonesia. Remember, they are the aggressor in this war, and if it looks like they're going to lose the war, then the population ultimately isn't going to be happy with the government. And with the failed invasion of Western Malaysia, the Filipino Navy will have a successful landing over here on the island of Sumatra. Can I color these islands, please? Pretty please? Okay, thank you. Okay, why are you darker? Oh god, what is happening? Alright, we're gonna ignore that. Anyway, the Filipino army is now cutting the island of Sumatra into two pieces. I'm not too sure of what kind of activities occur in Sumatra, but I could imagine that they're pretty fun. I've seen a lot of videos from over here in the Bali region, but not much over here. Anyway, the Indonesian army is now on fraud watch. They're getting blasted by the Filipinos, as well as the Thai, and technically the Australians as well. We should actually probably check in on them real quick. Dear God. So, Timor-Leste did catch a stray bullet in this war. They were minding their business, but they did wake up in the ER. Australia, though, has been putting in some work on Indonesia. Please don't take that out of context, but this entire island here, which I like to call the Star Island because it kind of looks like one. I actually don't know what it's called in real life. Yeah, though, as you can see, Indonesia is greatly failing here. All of the island of Borneo is now under red team occupation. And furthermore, Furthermore, we have more areas of Sumatra being occupied. We have one major city, which is apparently in the middle of the ocean, already occupied. That is by the fish, not the Filipinos. But after the fall of this major city in the north, the rest of the north will fall under red team occupation, and from there they'll start to march their way south, taking over this major city as well. They'll take over the head part of Giraffe Island, and then they'll take over the butt part of it. And from there, all of Sumatra will now be fully occupied by the red team, leaving Indonesia only to the island of Jakarta. Nope, this is Java. I always somehow manage to mix up Java and Jakarta. I mean, they're pretty similar. You know, they both start with Ja Morant. Java is the island. Jakarta is the capital. Doesn't matter though, because Indonesia will surrender before this gets any more out of hand, and the red team will be victorious in their war against Indonesia. Well, technically it was Indonesia's war, so they're gonna lose this war. What a stupid decision that was. Anyway, let's take a look at the peace treaty of Pyongyang. And in this treaty, we have the Philippines annexing a good portion of Borneo as well as Star Island and a lot of land from over here, including Papua New Guinea, as well as a bunch of islands. That was a mouthful of words that I just said. Anyway, they'll also puppet the rest of Borneo. So Indonesia actually doesn't lose a ton of land over to the Philippines, but remember, Australia was in this war and therefore they'll be getting some land as well. So they annex all of Papua New Guinea as well as the rest of New Guinea over here. Furthermore, their new oceanic border will extend all the way over like this. So Indonesia is now only limited to the island of Java as well as the island of Sumatra. So really, they do lose a ton of land over here to the red team in Australia. But our Filipino empire is now complete. So they span all the way once again from the Solomon Islands up into Vietnam. They go as far west as Malaysia. Funnily enough, the northernmost point is actually still the Philippine Islands. And the southernmost point also happens to be the easternmost point. So yeah, this is a very vast empire. This is kind of reminding me a little bit of the Japanese Empire in World War II. Of course, hopefully without all of the atrocities. I don't know, Vietnam might have a case against that. But yeah, the Filipino empire is now 100% complete. That is going to do it for today's video. So if you guys did enjoy, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. As always, the support is greatly appreciated. I can no longer say that we're reaching for 200,000 subscribers because we're well past that at this point. And there really isn't any other major milestones anytime soon. The next major one is 250,000 subscribers, of course. But we probably have a while to go until we get there. But yeah, also make sure to check out the 200,000 subscriber limited edition merchandise. That's only going to be here until December 31st. After that, it's going away forever. So if by some chance we become a very large YouTube channel in the future, you know, here's hoping, you can say you were here at 200,000 subscribers. If you don't want to do that, then I'm going to be very sad. But also check out the Wixo merch. That's going to be here past December 31st. That's not limited time, but 200K still, that is. So you should probably check that out. Also make sure to check out the Discord server, link to that in the description. And our channel memberships, which are going to give you early access to each and every one of our videos, as well as sometimes some exclusive member content and some special roles in the Discord server. So if you have a channel membership and you're in the Discord server, you get your own special channel as well as special role. I don't know if you guys really care about that kind of stuff, but you know, perks are perks. Anyway, once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.
And of course, thank you to all our super fans.
This includes Andrew
Truno,
O2,
Apex,
Dexlendy,
Sue,
Shifty Mapping,
Beast the Mapper,
Omega the
Bren,
YouTuber,
Opie the Bopey,
Euroball,
Wizo,
Rad is totally my
Terminator,
name. See what I do?
AdizzPro,
I ain't
Jazzy
lying.
Jerboa,
CTG on
Nevada
YT,
Garbage Trucks,
Green France
Angola
Mapping,
Ball Mapping,
Ozgeo,
A Norwegian,
Augusto,
Pablo
Rocker
Sigma
Cat,
GNR95,
Big Goose,
Zaylance,
RS,
Lasertane, and Hammer Toad 45. Once again, thank you guys.